And we say, oh, that comes from, lives within, and emerged from the mind of God. And we could say, well, where does the mind of God come from? Follow what we know about evolutionary biology. Like, you get to ridiculously abstract thinking creative engines like Robert, and then you go beyond that, and you don't have to subscribe to the old school idea that a consciousness like Robert can only exist in carbon-based matter. Why can't Robert consciousness patterns exist in the electromagnetic spectrum? Why can't it exist in gravitational patterns? Why can't it exist in some exotic topological form of physics like Leonard Susskind's idea?
Or the
right?
periodic table of elements.
Thank you. So that's it. So it's just the wrapping of that linear hierarchy into a circle. And then you can ask, oh, the self-simulating pan-consciousness substrate, which is like God, right? I'm not trying to be religious. I'm just saying it's more probable than not that higher and higher levels of consciousness can self-organize in the universe. And eventually you get to ones that can do simulations better than tic-tac-toe. And even simulations better than the dreams that keep punking me. Because they're way more complex than tic-tac-toe.
I bet you have some trippy dreams, man. I'm quite sure you have some wild I could see you waking up and going, that was a trip.
Yes.
That happens to me all the time, by the way. And by the way, unlike what you said for you, I was thinking during this course of this conversation, not even wondering, I'm like, whoa, this is a trippy simulation. as it's 1:44 right now.
We need to do that. We all need to do that more often. We need to stop and ask in our dreams, because if you get used to stopping and asking if you're dreaming, like if you train yourself to ask,
I do it all the time. Yeah.
Then you're going to have more lucid dreams. And if you can have a lucid dream, you can do some really cool stuff.
So I had this weird experience just this week. I spent the week in Austin, Texas. I stayed at the house of a pretty well-known actor by the name of Adrian Grenier, who was the guy who played the lead character on one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Entourage.
Oh, yeah.
And so I spent the week at his house, and he's an incredibly gracious host. But it was so bizarre for me because I've been studying alchemy, and I'm kind of a student of hermetic wisdom, and I happen to believe that the self-simulation hypothesis that you are putting forward here has been taught for millennia, from ancient times to today, just using different words. And, the very first principle of hermetic wisdom is the universe is mental. The all is mental.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a powerful thing. So I teach hermetic wisdom, and I get to his place. And this whole last, few weeks, I've been really intrigued by the concept of Philosopher's Stone and turning the suffering of negative experiences into the evolution, the gold of evolution in our soul. So it's soul evolution.
Love it.
And so I arrive at his ranch. He's got a beautiful ranch. The name of the ranch is Kintsugi. Now, Kintsugi, you may recognize, it's a Japanese word for making this type of pottery, of broken pieces of pottery that they put back together. They take all the broken parts and then they weld it back together with gold.
Yes. Something beautiful
like
from something broken.
It's something beautiful from something broken. And to me, that's the hero's journey that, I believe is the foundational basis of the entire self-simulation theory that you're talking about.
That's right.
And I believe that we have a higher self, and the higher self is basically decided for us to experience this division of oneness so that it can perceive itself through our eyes that are totally unique, that nobody else would ever have had in the past and no one will ever have again, because we have our own unique conditioning biases associated with it. So even though we think that what happens to us is what happened to us, it's not. It's what we believe happened to us that actually happens to us. In our minds, it creates an emotional state. And then those emotions feed some larger, for lack of a better term, AI, which is not really an AI, it's just intelligence. It's feeding back to this one consciousness, and we are like a mirror for that consciousness. And and that mirror happens right at fine structure constant, 1 over 137.
I love it.
To me, it's like we have been selected in a way
to
experience this lower dimensional or dimensionally limited avatar state. We are in a dimensionally limited avatar state because if you and I were omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent, we could never play poker and have it be fun,
Yes.
right? I would know the hand you're going to be dealt. You would know the hand I'm going to be dealt. It'd be
Yes.
kind of boring. So
Yes.
the only game that would make sense in this self-simulation hypothesis would be a game where we limited our powers. And the whole idea was to go back and realize that we had them all along. So the one divides itself into the many simply for the joy of perceiving itself through our unique eyes of perception and then becoming one again. It's like
Exactly.
breathing.
Now, let me disclose where the self-simulation hypothesis might bother some people. And I think it's good to it's good to face something that bothers you so that you can be a good discoverer in this reality and be a good scientist, because a good scientist doubts everything, even their own beliefs, and always looks to double check themselves to see if they're missing something. So there is baked in, especially for us people in the West, a Judeo-Christian type of belief system, which is also baked into the Islamic belief systems, that says essentially there is this God character, and God was in a good mood. Thank goodness. Thank God, God was in a good mood, and God blessed reality with the gift of reality or creation. And it certainly didn't need us to become itself. I do not believe in that. I believe in a oneness universe where God self-actualizes itself from fundamentally simple things down at the most boring, geeky level of the math game board and the math game.